So we'll be finishing this class, this chapter or paper on disaster management, and I hope you must have got idea about various aspects involved in disaster management. So normally we have a very common sense approach that disaster management talks of relief only. So now it has emerged worldwide as one of the most scientific subjects. Studied not only in public administration or political science or social sciences, but also in other sciences in different universities of the world. So this is a challenging area that our students should take up and must get information so that we can make our life better and save lives, properties involved in disaster. So the central question of this paper is, what idea I've got about what disaster is? What are types of disaster, consequences of disaster, reconstruction, redevelopment, rebuilding, and discussing various problems faced by people affected by disaster. What is pre-disaster preparation, preparation during disaster, post-disaster preparation? Then what are the experiences from past on the basis of which we can go march ahead and face the future? So the new emerging area in this paper since the experiences from last 10 years, that is development and disaster. That's a crucial area that we'll discuss today. And how approach to disaster has expanded from a very narrow angle to a wider angle, involving the issues of development and making it relevant to disaster. Then this present chapter will be studying rehabilitation and reconstruction. That is very crucial. This is chapter 14. I have already completed yesterday, but the damage assessment. So in damage assessment, we have studied what is the future plan. Actually, how damage assessment will be done. That means what happened, what are the effects of any disaster on people, on their livelihood, on their property, etc. Then we have this, what are the people who are hardest hit and what situation must be given priority. What types of assistance are required and necessity for disaster response and what needs to be done. So these are the objectives or aspects of damage assessment. That is chapter 14. So now we'll be going to chapter 15, that is rehabilitation and reconstruction. So you know what rehabilitation is. We call it as rehabilitation and reconstruction. So reconstruction, all of you know, reconstruction is punargathan. Rehabilitation is thoithana mein jab kuche. So rehabilitation is short term, immediate, that is disaster recovery, back to normal. Just after disaster, we help people to be back to their normal life. How a normal life can be restored immediately after a disaster, that is called rehabilitation. We cannot exactly bring to a pre-disaster situation, but we can restore their immediate needs. We can build their communication facilities, road building, etc. And we can restore their local services immediately, like water, electricity, road, building, etc. Then we can bring these people to normalcy. That is called rehabilitation. Then reconstruction is normally a long-term development. It involves long-term development, right? So that is called reconstruction. So in reconstruction, the purpose is to reduce future disaster risks. So we can reduce the risks in future disasters through reconstruction. Though exactly pre-disaster status cannot be restored, but we can bring them into normalcy and reconstruct the entire process so that there will be a less risk in future. That is the purpose of reconstruction. These are the conceptualizations. What conceptualizations of reconstruction, right? So rehabilitation is back to normal position, fulfilling the immediate needs of the people in post-disaster situation. Just sorry, I have not made my video on. I have forgotten that. Okay, thank you. So, so am I audible? Sound is okay?
Yes, sir.
Hello.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. So rehabilitation means we want to bring the life of people affected in disaster after disaster to normal position. We should identify what are their immediate needs. They need road, they need water, they need food, and they need also livelihood. That is rehabilitation. Reconstruction is a long-term arrangement. Suppose a road is totally washed in the flood, so you can have a temporary road. But in reconstruction, you will permanently build that road, so that there will be minimum risk if there is a future flood in the next year or after some years, right? Then now we'll go to what are the types of these um, uh, reconstructions or rehabilitations. What are the types of rehabilitation? One is physical. So I have already told you, physical rehabilitation means this road, building, electricity, water system, etc. This is called physical rehabilitation. This can be both short term and long term, right? This is physical. Then we have this social rehabilitation. What is social rehabilitation? So this aspect is normally neglected in every rehabilitation process everywhere in the world, and particularly in Odisha and also in India. Normally earlier we have taken cognizance of this important factor in recent days. The society that is affected in a disaster is not heterogeneous. Sorry, is not homogeneous. It is heterogeneous. There are different castes, social groups. There are men and women, children, old age population, risky population. So we have to take society as a heterogeneous group. The society that is affected in a disaster. Understood? So here this means the priorities or needs of different groups are different. So in the rehabilitation process or reconstruction process, we should identify the different kinds of needs of different groups in that particular community or society. So that is what the objective of social rehabilitation. So the social aspects of the community affected, the affected community in a disaster with a cyclone, earthquake, whatever, must be taken care of, must be taken into account while there is a reconstruction program or rehabilitation program. That is important. Then we have psychological rehabilitation. You know, people who are affected by this disaster, any kind of disaster, they're shocked. There is trauma. Somebody is losing the members of his family. Somebody died. Somebody got serious injury and they don't have sufficient money to go for the treatment. Somebody lost her house. Suppose a poor man totally lost her house. What will do after disaster? Where he or she will or her family will live? So that creates a trauma, psychological depression. It creates a psychological disaster in the minds of those people. So psychologically, they must be made strong. We must, the entire society, community, government, those who are involved in rehabilitation, they must be very empathetic, sympathetic to the causes, to the psychological stress that they are being victim to in a disaster. That is very important. That is psychological, right? So psychological, just I am explaining these terms. I need not go to details because so we have to see these three important aspects. One is କହିଦିଅ। Hmm. One is so one important aspect is social rehabilitation, another is psychological rehabilitation. So these two aspects are equally important, like physical rehabilitation and physical reconstruction. That's why these must be three aspects: physical rehabilitation, social rehabilitation, and psychological rehabilitation are important as well as interconnected. You cannot separate each from the other. So there must be a holistic approach to their sufferings, psychologically, socially, as well as physically. So what normally we do, we sorry, there is a technical problem. Anyway. So normally what we have done in these last several years, the entire rehabilitation program or reconstruction program has been reduced to relief and physical reconstruction or physical rehabilitation. But the scars, the trauma that the people suffer, the agony that the people suffer, we have so far ignored those aspects. The social conditions that is demolished or disrupted or dislocated, that we neglect. That's why, out of the experience from different parts of the world and also in Odisha and in India, we have learned that people who are affected or who are victims of disaster, they are also injured socially as well as psychologically, apart from economically or physically. So that's why you must have a holistic strategy to address these issues, right? Then what are the general principles or guiding principles of rehabilitation? One is there must be provision of emergency relief. That means relief must be ready. That is one important provisions of emergency relief. Second is there must be rehabilitation of displaced people. If people are being displaced by a cyclone, displaced by a flood, or displaced by any natural disaster or hazard, then they must be restored. They must be rehabilitated. Then there must be initiation of the long-term project. Short-term project will not do. So in terms of long-term development, we must see how this can be solved. That is very important. These are three guiding principles of the process of rehabilitation and reconstruction, right? Then what are the other major principles? What are the key concepts? With that, we'll finish and we'll go to the next chapter. Because I have just highlighted what are the important aspects of these three chapters. Because you have got a huge idea about disaster management in all the previous chapters, 14 chapters. So 15, 16, 17 are very important. They are key ideas. So I cannot afford to ignore the last chapter. We must have equal justice for all the three chapters, right? So that's why I am giving you important ideas or important aspects. So till now in this chapter, what I explained what is rehabilitation, what is reconstruction. Rehabilitation is short term, reconstruction is long term. Then kinds of rehabilitation: physical, social, psychological, understood. Then these two aspects, social and psychological, these were neglected earlier. We are giving stress to these aspects in recent times. Then what are the major principles? Emergency relief, rehabilitation of the displaced people, and what finally, that is initiation of long-term development. That is most important for a successful and effective disaster management, right? Then what are the other key guiding principles? I have already explained. Again, I am repeating this point, that one thing, we must not consider society as a homogeneous group. Society here I mean the society which is affected by a natural disaster. So if a group of people or a community is affected by a natural disaster, we must underline the fact that this group, this community, this society consists of different kinds of people in terms of social recognition, economic recognition, and cultural recognition. Socially, they are different groups. They may be in terms of caste, gender, etc. Economically, they may be different in terms of poor, rich, middle class, lower middle class, etc. Then, in terms of culture, they may be different. They may be men and women, gender, etc. Right? So these are the issues. That means while going for a disaster management program or reconstruction or rehabilitation, particularly, we must take this fact into mind or consideration that a society affected is not a homogeneous group, that is a heterogeneous group, right? Then second, why should we consider as heterogeneous? Because the requirement, the need may be different of different groups. I am making more clear. Suppose a society is affected in a disaster. Who are the most worst victims? Because women. In a flood-like situation, they don't have privacy, going to toilets, right? So we have to take their privacy into account. So they don't have this fuel for cooking. Nobody is talking of fuel, how cooking will be. They have to go miles to fetch drinking water. So the needs of women are different from the needs of men in a post-disaster situation. So these particular needs must be taken into account. The old age people, their need is different from the young normal people. The needs of children are different. So considering them as a heterogeneous group helps in identifying different kinds of needs of different kinds of people, right? So that is the objective of taking them as a heterogeneous group. Second is there must be a balance between economic, social, and psychological needs. When a society or community is affected in a disaster, the economic needs is different from their social needs and psychological needs. These three must be taken together and must be given equal importance so that there will be a balance, right? Then we have these key issues. What are the other key issues that we need to focus? We need to focus on certain key issues. So far, we are talking of rehabilitation and reconstruction. What are the key issues? We should stress on, give importance to flexibility and adaptability while going for rehabilitation and reconstruction. What is flexibility and adaptability? If there is a situation, new demand, new requirement, then the system must adapt to the new situation, must have flexibility to adapt to the new situation. ନମନୀୟ ହବା ଦରକାର, ଚେଞ୍ଜ ପରିବର୍ତ୍ତନ ସହିତ ଖାପ ଖୁଆଇବା ଦରକାର, ତାର ଅର୍ଥ ହେଲା ସେଇଆ ହେଲା। Promoting systematic damage assessment. I have already explained details about damage assessment yesterday. Why should there be damage assessment? Because this is for future. If damage is assessed systematically, scientifically, and objectively, then there will be no damage or less damage or minimum damage in future disasters. So to assess damage is to ensure that there will be minimum damage in future assessment. So when there will be rehabilitation or reconstruction, the damage must be assessed in a scientific manner, right? I have already told you the methods how damage will be assessed. Then there must be transparency. The entire process of reconstruction and rehabilitation, from giving relief to building roads, to giving water supply, to give connecting electricity. Suppose there will be short term and long term. In rehabilitation, if there is no line, you can just temporarily create a system. There will be electricity, but that is not a permanent feature. You may have to change the electric poles, change the electric wire, change the entire system. That is a long term. That is a reconstruction. So if there must be transparency. There must not be any kind of corruption in that process. Normally, there is a allegations all over in post reconstruction or reconstruction part or rehabilitation part. There is a huge corruption. So the system must be transparent. Which system? The system of rehabilitation and reconstruction. Number one. The second is they must be efficient. There must not be misuse of money or resources or power in rehabilitation or in reconstruction. That system must be efficient, right? Then it must be effective, effective. So transparency and effectiveness must be there. Then there must be financial recovery. That means without money, nothing can be done. So far, natural disasters are concerned. So where from money will come? Normally, government is providing money. We have talked about sources of money or mobilizing resources in that chapter. We have discussed about that. So money comes from mainly from government agencies. Now you are talking of corporate social responsibility. You may bring money from international agencies, NGOs, and other sectors, right? So whatever may be the source, but there must be a sufficient arrangement of financial resources for reconstruction and rehabilitation. You will have a big plan that we will build concrete roads everywhere, so in future floods there will be not damage of those roads. But for concrete roads, you need money and you need efficiency and transparency so that rupees 100 came and rupees 100 will be spent on road. It is not that contractor will take or other people will take away and out of 100 rupees, 60 rupees will be spent on road, 40 rupees will be going to others' pockets. So by that, this is wastage of money. So finance resources must be earmarked and clearly planned, right? So developing disaster resistant buildings. So if it is an earthquake system, if it is other systems where you need buildings, suppose mainly buildings are affected in what? In fire and in earthquake and in flood or cyclone. So if there will be Paka building, there must be resistant, disaster resistant building. That means if there is a earthquake, if there is a severe flood or severe cyclone, then this building can have the capacity to resist those disasters. It must survive. Otherwise, how many times you will build homes, or how many times people will have the money to build homes, or how much money a government will have to give money to people every time there is a disaster. So there are technical RCC proof, the concrete proof, etc. There are HUDCO in central government. There are so many technical guidelines for disaster resistant buildings. Then resilient communities. We have already talked of CBDM, community-based disaster management. That is a resilient community. That means community. I have already told you earlier that there are repetitions of same ideas in different chapters. It's obvious, right? So for rehabilitation and reconstruction, we need the involvement of community participation, community training, community knowledge, community preparedness, and community involvement, mobilizing capacity, etc. So that is community CBDM. Community must be involved in the process of not only rescue operation or relief operation, but also in this reconstruction and rehabilitation. When there is a process of rehabilitation, there must be the management of the involvement of the community. If community is involved, it will reduce corruption. It will have a proper planning from the ground zero. Then we must have norms of or values of or principles or ideology of equity and justice while taking the case of reconstruction and rehabilitation. I am giving a very small example from a Jaspur district. That when after flood, cyclone, there is a need of fuels. Fuels are defunct. So what happened? There was a fuel in the area of the village where there are general castes, but there was no fuel where there are Dalits are living. So again, because they are politically powerful and they are connected, they have power, local power, economic power, or political power, or social power. So they force the authorities to have a fuel in a particular area where the Savarnas are living. So fuel or water source became closer to their houses, but far away from their houses. So what happened actually? It must be in the middle of the village. Everybody must have the equal access. So this violates the principles of equity. So here it means when there is a rehabilitation or reconstruction, the needs of different groups in terms of suppose caste or gender, women, men, general caste, or social tribe must be taken into account, and there must be equal treatment for all. The concept of justice must be there. Who needs a relief? It's all right when there is a disaster, everybody needs a relief because even a rich man needs a relief because he cannot or she cannot cook. She does not have the facilities for cooking, or she may not have the food grain for cooking. So everybody needs. But after that, the need is varied. A rich man may not need dry food or cooked food or food items, but you have to give them. So the priority, you must prioritize what is important for particular groups of people. Then respecting the traditional wisdom. What is traditional wisdom? Long years of people, older people, age-old people, experienced people, they know how to deal with a flood-like situation because they have experienced severe floods 5 times, 10 times, 20 times in their lifetime. So they have the experience that is called local wisdom. They have the experience how to deal with a disaster. So their experience, along with science, along with the technology, must be combined. It is not that village people or people living in rural areas do not know anything. They have rather more knowledge about the practical aspects of rehabilitation and reconstruction. Then there are so many good practices. So these good practices must be taken into account and must be continued or disseminated to other parts of people, other parts of the country or state where there are disasters. Suppose the flood management was done excellent by local people or by government agencies or local government agencies. So how they were done or completed excellently. So that must be taken to other parts of the people. So that is important, right? Next is uh, this environment protection. So we will be studying in the next chapter environment and development or development and disaster. Now we have learned because of environmental destruction, there is recurrence of disasters have increased. So because of climate change, disasters are being frequent, in particularly in sea areas like Odisha, Bengal, Andhra, parts of India, or parts of Asia, or parts of America. So why this is happening? This is happening because of environmental degradation or destruction, almost you can say. How can we prevent that? So far, we have discussed that how to manage a disaster, how to mitigate a disaster, how to reconstruct the damages made by a disaster, how to rehabilitate the people who are affected by a disaster. So this is all disaster-driven strategies or objectives or plans. Disaster-driven. There is a disaster, we are planning how to manage. But we have not yet stressed on why disasters are happening. This is happening everybody now in the world, whether it is developed capitalist countries like America, Germany, France, Italy, etc., England, or socialist countries like China, Russia, and other countries. Russia is no more a socialist now; it's also a capitalist country. Or third world developed countries like India and others all agree that because of environmental degradation or destruction, there is natural disasters or in more. So we have to go to the root of the cause, root of the problem. Root is environment. So environment must be protected. So we'll be detailing in next chapter development and then sustainable development, endorsing sustainable development and alternative livelihood strategies. I have already explained and if I given you the definition of sustainable development, that means whatever is with us naturally or given by nature, what they are. Nature has given us fuels, petrol, diesel, kerosene. Nature has given us air. Nature has given us water. We should not pollute them. We should not overuse them. We should not misuse them because we don't have a right. It is not preaching. You don't have a right. Governments do not have, governments are being elected by the people democratically to manage state, not to destroy the natural resources. So it is the private corporations, big capitalist corporations who are misusing them for their profit. That must be stopped. That there is no alternative. Because if you continue like this, then the entire human civilization will be destroyed. Nature will be destroyed. If nature will be destroyed, nobody will be here, neither man or animal or tree or whatever it may be. So we must develop in a substance manner, right? So this is what they have told in this rehabilitation and reconstruction. I think this chapter, you can last part of the chapter you can study what are the consequences of tsunami, how post tsunami recovery was there, how it was done in a very good manner, what are the lacunas, what are the deficiencies, what are the demerits, and how these demerits or lacunas can be filled up in future. What is the lesson we learned from tsunami? Or funny, you can say in Odisha or flood, recent flood, you can say why in recent flood many people died. The government or society has never respected. They concentrated on cyclone, not on flood. So after like cyclone, when there is flood, the system was ill prepared. So that's why there was casualty. So we learn from them. Then we'll go ahead in future plan. So next chapter 16 is disasters and development. This is most important out of the entire chapter. So what is the relation between disaster and development? Is disaster leading to development or development leading to disaster? So when I say development is leading to disaster, this is a negative statement. You can question, sir, do we do not need development? Yes, we do need development. Development is a basic requirement of every society, every country, entire world. We need to develop. We need to develop our technology. We need to develop our way of life. We need to develop our standards of living. We need to have better buildings, better transport, better roads, better electricity, better water system, better urban areas, better rural areas, better connectivity, better way of living, and also we need better civilization and better human beings. So with all these, you need you have 1G phone, 2G phone, 3G phone, 4G phone. Now you have 5G phone. Good, very good, good connectivity, no problem. So you have keypad phone earlier. Now you have Android phone. In future there may be another kind of phone. So we are developing. You have earlier kacha roads. Now you have concrete roads. Earlier you have B2, B3, B4 emission engines. Now you have B6 emission engines to control the pollution. Earlier, you did not have any aeroplanes or a very few number of aeroplanes in the world. Now everybody is flying over aeroplane. A daily worker is also flying from Assam to Odisha, Bengal, and India. A pani pipe worker from Kendrapada district is also flying because he wants to save his money by traveling in a long train route, right? So everybody is in a hurry in today's world. So that is what development is to be understood. So now we are living in the age of globalization. So what is globalization? Growing interconnectedness among the people or parts of the world. You have email, you have WhatsApp, you have social media. Within seconds, you can contact a friend of yours in America, England, Germany, France, any part of the world. In Kenya, in Ghana, in Sri Lanka, in Mozambique, small states, big states, developed states, underdeveloped states, north states, south states. You are a developed people, they are a backward people, they are educated, they are uneducated. So many divisions, categories in the world, and we have a development process. But what is for this development? What is the objective of development? What is the meaning of development? If entire nature is being destroyed, if the entire sources of life, that is water, in Odisha, Ganga is one of the most polluted river in the world. Brahmani, Brahmaputra, Kaveri, almost all rivers of India are polluted. You cannot directly go and take the water into your mouth. If you go to Gangotri, it may be possible, I am not sure, it may be possible that you can drink Ganga water directly. But it is never possible in UP, Uttarakhand or Bihar, wherever there is Ganga or Calcutta. That is the most polluted river. So many poisons in that river. We have destroyed. So how have you destroyed? It is not that you threw some flowers or put the statues of Ganesha or Ma Durga or something like that. They are polluting, but that is very less, negligible. The industrial pollutants, the pollutions coming from big industries, that is the most dangerous part in river life. So what we are doing? Because the big corporations are powerful people, they can influence politics, they can influence minister to top level bureaucrats. So state is unable, helpless bystander before their pollution. Air is polluted, you cannot live in Delhi now. Delhi's air is one of the most polluted air in the world. Most polluted. Why? So many factors, and industrial pollution is one of that. So this is development. You need industry for development. Can you say that we need industry as well as we need pollution? No. So this is creating disaster. Why? The process of development or destruction out of development is being accelerated in last 10 years or 20 years, you can say, by emitting poisonous gases, greenhouse gases, etc. The ecological balance is being destroyed. There is a leak in ozone layer. So oxygen is being diluted. Oxygen is not sufficient in the air. So what to do? We can say we cannot do for development. No, we have to go for development. That's why the alternative is sustainable development. We are talking of sustainable development since 70s or 60s, 40, 50 years. Why this is not happening? Because the big corporation, the big capitalists, they are running after profit. They are not running after man or human civilization. They are least bothered whether civilization is destroyed or not. You cannot say, I am of this age. Suppose our seniors who are 60, 70, 50, 55, this year, suppose they say our life is sufficient, we will be living in comfort with air conditioned machines, air conditioned cars, and everywhere there is air condition. That is one of the major sources of leakage in ozone layer out of their gas. So we will destroy the earth. It will not kept for young generations like you and more young generations than you. You are the future, and those who are studying in class 5, 6, 10, or those who are born this year in COVID-19 year, what will they get in future? They get a most polluted world. I mean, doubt after 50 years whether this world will be or will not be, because the disasters and their number will be increasing. So everybody talks of globalization. So neo-capitalist or neo-liberal globalization is the most dangerous threat to our development process, inclusive development. So we have divided two topics, substantial development and sustainable development. So what is substantial development? That is the development by which you can use the available resources, natural resources, judiciously, so that you can meet your needs as well as to save them for the future needs of future generations. ଆମେ ଆମର ଆବଶ୍ୟକ ଯାହା ପାଣି ଅଛି, ଜଳ ଅଛି, ଗାଡି ଅଛି, ଘୋଡା ଅଛି, ଇଏ ସବୁ ଆବଶ୍ୟକତାକୁ ପୂରଣ କରିବା ସହିତ ଆମେ ଭବିଷ୍ୟତ ବଂଶଧର ପାଇଁ ଆମେ ପ୍ରାକୃତିକ ସମ୍ବଳକୁ, ଅନ୍ୟାନ୍ୟ ସମ୍ବଳକୁ ରଖିବା, ପରିବେଶକୁ ସୁରକ୍ଷା କରିବା. But this is not going to happen. What is happening? We talk of globalization, but there is no globalization. COVID-19 proved. If all the big nations of the world, China, America, German, France, Italy, England, have joined hands together and fought against COVID-19, then we would have been successful. ଯଦି ସବୁ ଉନ୍ନତ ରାଷ୍ଟ୍ରମାନେ, ଧନୀ ରାଷ୍ଟ୍ରମାନେ, ବିକଶିତ ରାଷ୍ଟ୍ରମାନେ ହାତ ମିଳେଇ ଦେଇଥାନ୍ତେ, କାନ୍ଧକୁ କାନ୍ଧ ମିଳେଇ ଦେଇଥାନ୍ତେ, ତାହେଲେ କଣ ହେଇଥାନ୍ତା? ତାଙ୍କ ପାଖରେ ଯେତିକି ପଇସା ଅଛି, ଯେତିକି ଟେକ୍ନୋଲୋଜି ଅଛି, ଏତେବେଳକୁ ତ ହେଇସାରନ୍ତାନି କଣ ଭ୍ୟାକ୍ସିନ, ଏବଂ ଏଇ ଯୋଉ ଲୋକ ଗୁଡିକ ମଲେ ଆମେ ବହୁତ ଲୋକଙ୍କ ଜୀବନ ବଞ୍ଚେଇ ପାରିଥାନ୍ତେ, ଇଏ କରିଥାନ୍ତେ। ଇମିଡିଏଟଲି ରିଆକ୍ସନ୍ସ କଣ ହେଲା? ଆମେରିକା କହିଲା ଚାଇନାରୁ ବାହାରିଛି, ଚାଇନାକୁ ତମେ ଦଣ୍ଡ ଦିଅ, ଇଏ WH ତା ବିରୁଦ୍ଧରେ ଲାଗ, ଜାତିସଂଘ ବିରୁଦ୍ଧରେ ଲାଗ। ଚାଇନା କହିଲା ମୁଁ ଜାଣିନି, ମୋ ସାଙ୍ଗରେ ଯେ ଲାଗିବ ମୁଁ ଉଡେଇଦେବି। ତ ଇଂଲଣ୍ଡ ତାକୁ ଦୋଷ ଦେଲା, ଇଏ ୟାକୁ ଦୋଷ ଦେଲା, ସିଏ ତାକୁ ଦୋଷ ଦେଲା, ପରସ୍ପର ଭିତରେ ବାଡା ପିଟା ହେଇକି କଣ କଲେ ନା ଦେ ଡିଡ୍ ଇନ୍ ଦେୟାର ଓନ୍ ନ୍ୟାସନାଲ ଇଣ୍ଟରେଷ୍ଟ. Nobody talked of global interest. Nobody talked of global development. Right? This is the fallout of globalization. Number one. Number two. So if you want to judiciously use your needs, what will happen? What is the need? What are the requirement? So if 5 officers are going to one office, suppose, why should there be 5 cars and use the petrol or diesel in 5 cars? Why not a single car? Maybe a big car. So in China, officers do not go in their private cars. They stay together in one colony or one area. A vehicle collects them, takes them to the office, and again leaves them. But in America, they are the most misuser. I cannot say user, misuser of this petrol, diesel, and water. ତିନିଟା ଜିନିଷକୁ ଆମେରିକା ଲୋକମାନେ ଅତି ଖରାପ ବ୍ୟବହାର କରନ୍ତି, ମିସୟୁଜ କରନ୍ତି। କେମିତି? ତାଙ୍କର ଘରେ ଜଣକା 5-6ଟା ଗାଡି, ବାପର ଗୋଟେ, ପୁଅର ଗୋଟେ, ଝିଅର ଗୋଟେ, ଭାଇର ଗୋଟେ, ଭଉଣୀର ଗୋଟେ, ସମସ୍ତଙ୍କର ଏଭରିବଡି ହାଜ ଏ ଭେହିକଲ। ଭେହିକଲଟା ତ ପାଣିରେ ଚାଲିବନି ନା। ଆଚ୍ଛା, ପାଣି ସେମାନେ ଯଦି ରେଗୁଲାର ନର୍ମାଲ ୟୁଜରେ ଦେ ସ୍ପେଣ୍ଡ 40 liters more than average population your use of water in the world. ୱାର୍ଲଡରେ ଆଭରେଜ ଯେତିକି ଲୋକ ପାଣି ୟୁଜ କରୁଛନ୍ତି ତାର ଶତକଡ଼ା 40% ଅଧିକା ସେମାନେ ପାଣି ୟୁଜ କରନ୍ତି। So what you have to stop this. If you talk of sustainable development, you have to stop this. But it is not that America will say that you people other than America, other people in the world should follow this line of development, sustainable development, and we cannot adopt that. So this is not going to happen. So there must be pressure from all over the world on these type of countries. Not only America, there are other countries also. So you cannot have 10, 20, you have money, that does not mean you will have 10, 20 cars. You are polluting. You are misusing or overusing natural resources, valuable natural resources like petrol and diesel. You know how petrol and diesel are created and how much year it will take. So this is dangerous. We have a reserve for only 50 years. ଆମ ଏଇ ରେଟ୍ରେ ଖର୍ଚ୍ଚ କଲେ ଆଗାମୀ 50 ବର୍ଷ ପାଇଁ ଆମ ପାଖରେ ପେଟ୍ରୋଲ ଡିଜେଲ ଅଛି, ତାପରେ ଆଉ ନାହିଁ। There is no alternative sources of energy. ବର୍ତ୍ତମାନ ପର୍ଯ୍ୟନ୍ତ ଯଦିଓ we are using nuclear energy and solar energy, but that is not sufficient to use these sufficient number of vehicles. So you need transport vehicles, bus darkar, train darkar, tamara jo truck darkar, because you need that for transport, for goods, for food, for production, supply, marketing, etc., etc. So you don't need this sufficient number of cars in your family, expensive cars. So we have to reduce. Here Gandhiji is relevant. So Gandhi has said that whatever you need, minimum that you need. ତମର ପଇସା ଆସିବ ତମେ 100 ଡ୍ରେସ ପିନ୍ଧିବ, that is misuse. 100 ଡ୍ରେସ ପାଇଁ କେତେ ପାଣି ଖର୍ଚ୍ଚ ହବ ସଫା କରିବା ପାଇଁ, ମେସିନ ହଉ ହାତରେ ହଉ, right? So washing machines use water 10 times more than normal use. ତମେ ବାଲ୍ଟିରେ ସଫା କରିବ ଯେତିକି ଦରକାର ସେ ତାଠୁ ଅଧିକ ଦରକାର ହବ. Then second important concept is inclusive development. So what is inclusive development? I have already told you inclusive development. That means inclusive development tries to include everybody who is excluded from the process of development. ତ ବିକାଶର ଧାରାରେ ଯୋଉମାନେ ବଞ୍ଚିତ ହେଇଛନ୍ତି ଏପର୍ଯ୍ୟନ୍ତ ତାଙ୍କୁ ଯୋଡ଼ିବା ପାଇଁ, ତାଙ୍କୁ କନେକ୍ଟ କରିବା ପାଇଁ ଏଇ ଡେଭଲପମେଣ୍ଟଟା ଚାହେଁ। ଆମେ ହଉନି, ତା ଅର୍ଥ ଡେଭଲପମେଣ୍ଟ ହେଲା, ଅମ୍ବାନୀଜ ୱେଲ୍ଥ ଇନକ୍ରିଜ ବାଇ 100 times, my wealth increased by 1%, or my wealth went minus. So during COVID time, all the poor people, those who are daily laborers, those who are working in agricultural field, those who are wage earners, those who are migrant laborers serving in different parts of the country and of the world, they become paupers or beggars. They don't have money. They are getting 50% of their salary or not getting at all. ତମ ଘରେ କାମ ନ କଲେ ତମେ କାହିଁ ପଇସା ଦବ? ଯୋଉମାନେ ବାହାରେ କାମ କରୁଥିଲେ ତାଙ୍କ ଅଫିସ ବନ୍ଦ ହେଇଗଲା, ସବୁ ପଳେଇ ଆସିଲେ ଏଠି। ବର୍ତ୍ତମାନ କୋଭିଡ ହଉ ନ ହଉ, ମରୁ ବଞ୍ଚୁ, ଖାଇବେ ତ, so they went away, returned to their original places of work. ଆଉ ଚାକିରି ନାହିଁ। And this exposed the nature of capitalism. Because ବିପଦ ସମୟରେ କୌଣସି କମ୍ପାନୀ, କୌଣସି ଫ୍ୟାକ୍ଟ୍ରି ସରକାରଙ୍କ କହିବା ସତ୍ତ୍ୱେ ଲୋକମାନଙ୍କୁ ମିନିମମ୍ ୱେଜେସ୍ ଭତ୍ତା ଦେଲେ ନାହିଁ। ଠିକ ଅଛି, ତମେ ଆମ ଫ୍ୟାକ୍ଟ୍ରିରେ 10 ବର୍ଷ କାମ କଲଣି, ଗୁଡାଏ କଣ୍ଟ୍ରିବ୍ୟୁଟ କରିଛ, ଗୁଡାଏ କାମ କରିଛ, କି ତମ ବିଲ୍ଡିଂ ରେ କାମ କରୁଛ, କାମ ନାହିଁ, କୋଭିଡ ଟାଇମରେ ମୁଁ ଆଣିପାରିବିନି, ତମେ ନେଇଯାଅ 10,000, 20,000, 50,000 ନେଇଯାଅ, 2-4 ମାସ ଚଳ, ତାପରେ ଦେଖିବା। Nobody did it. So this created a debt burden. ଆଉ ଥରେ ଋଣଗ୍ରସ୍ତ ହେଇଗଲା ଲୋକ, ବା ବୋଝ ତାଙ୍କ ଉପରେ ପଡିଗଲା। So this exposed the model of development that is being taken right now, which is capitalist development. So it is the nature of capitalist development, what Marx has said, MCQ, money, commodity, money. It's a cycle. You invest first money to produce commodity. ଗୋଟେ ପୁଞ୍ଜିପତି କଣ କରିବ? ଟଙ୍କା ଖର୍ଚ୍ଚ କରିବ, ଲେବର କିଣିବ, ମେସିନ କିଣିବ, କଞ୍ଚାମାଲ କିଣିବ, ଟୁ ପ୍ରଡ୍ୟୁସ କମୋଡିଟି ଇନ୍ ଫ୍ୟାକ୍ଟ୍ରି। ଗୋଟେ ଫ୍ୟାକ୍ଟ୍ରିରେ କମୋଡିଟି ତିଆରି କରିବ। କମୋଡିଟି ମାନେ କଣ? ଯୋଉଟା ବଜାରରେ ବିକ୍ରି ହବ, କପଡା ହଉ, ଲୁହା ହଉ, ଆଲୁମିନିୟମ ହଉ, ବା ଏନିଥିଙ୍ଗ, ସର୍ଭିସେସ ହଉ, ଯାହା ହଉ। ତ ଯୋଉଟା ବଜାରରେ ବିକ୍ରି ହେଲା, ଇଟ ୱିଲ୍ ଗେଟ୍ ପ୍ରଫିଟ, ଦ୍ୟାଟ ଇଜ ସରପ୍ଲସ ଭ୍ୟାଲୁ। So ଯୋଉ ସରପ୍ଲସ ଭ୍ୟାଲୁ ଆସିଲା ତାକୁ ଆଡ ହବ ତା ପ୍ରଫିଟ ରେ। He cannot spend on personal expenses. Even if a capitalist, suppose Ambani will take, or Adani or Tata or whatever big corporations in the world, they will spend it on their own luxuries. କେତେ ଖର୍ଚ୍ଚ କରିପାରିବେ? Even if Ambani's wife has a golden bag or golden diamond studded clutch, that is money purse ଝିଅ ମାନେ ଧରନ୍ତି ବା ଲେଡିଜ ମାନେ ଧରନ୍ତି, ସେଥିରେ ତାର ହୀରା ଲାଗିଛି। ଇଭେନ୍ ତା ଜୋତାରେ ହୀରା ଲଗେଇଦେବେ, ସକାଳୁ ଯଦି ଜଳଖିଆ ଖାଇବ ସେ ପ୍ୟାରିସରେ, ଲଣ୍ଡନରେ ଭାତ ଖାଇବ, ପୁଣି ପଳେଇବ ୱାସିଂଟନରେ ରାତିରେ ଡିନର ଖାଇବ, ପୁଣି ଶୋଇବ ଆସିକି ବମ୍ବେରେ, ସେତି ପଇସା 0.01% ବି ଖର୍ଚ୍ଚ ହବନି ତା ଲାଭର। ହଜାର ହଜାର କ୍ରୋଡ଼ କେତେ ଖର୍ଚ୍ଚ କରିପାରିବ? ବୁଝିପାରୁଛ? So what will they spend? They will spend on recreating more commodities. ଆହୁରି ଅଧିକରୁ ଅଧିକ ଉତ୍ପାଦନ କରିବେ। ଅଧିକରୁ ଉତ୍ପାଦନ କରିବା ପାଇଁ କଣ ଦରକାର? ନ୍ୟାଚୁରାଲ ରିସୋର୍ସେସ ଦରକାର। ଆଲୁମିନିୟମ ଦରକାର, ଆଇରନ୍ ଦରକାର, ମାଟି ଖୋଳିବା ଦରକାର, ପାଣି ଖୋଳିବା ଦରକାର, ପେଟ୍ରୋଲ ଡିଜେଲ ସବୁ ଦରକାର। ତ ଏଇଟା ବେଶୀ ୟୁଜ ହେଲେ କଣ ହବ? So what we need today exactly? We don't. Globalization has this accelerated process of destruction of the environment. ତ ଜଗତୀକରଣ ପ୍ରକ୍ରିୟାରେ ଲାଷ୍ଟ 30 yearsରେ ପରିବେଶ ଧ୍ୱଂସ ପ୍ରକ୍ରିୟାଟା ଅଧିକରୁ ଅଧିକ ତ୍ୱରାନ୍ୱିତ ହେଇଛି। That's why we are stressing that disasters are byproducts of the process of development, at least in these last 3-4 decades. Disaster ହଉଛି କାହିଁକି? ବନ୍ୟା, ବାତ୍ୟା, ମରୁଡି, ଭୂମିକମ୍ପ ସବୁ ହଉଛି ବା ବଢିଛି। ଆଗରୁ ହଉନଥିଲା ସେ କଥା ନୁହେଁ, ଆଗରୁ ବି ହଉଥିଲା, କିନ୍ତୁ ଏବେ ତ୍ୱରାନ୍ୱିତ ହେଇଛି, ତାଙ୍କ ସଂଖ୍ୟା ବଢିଛି ବିକଜ ଅଫ ଦି attack on nature, because of the imbalance in nature. Unless you address this problem, এই সমস্যার সমাধান ন কলে, এগুলো আলোচনা করিকি যে ডিজাস্টর পরে কোন হব, রাস্তা কেମିତି ତିଆରି হব, লোকাল পিপল আসিবে, ঘর ତିଆରି হব, তার মিনিংলেস ହେଇଯିବ। How much capable Odisha is to face natural disasters once, twice, thrice in a year. ଯଦି ଦିନକୁ 3 ଥର ଓଡିଶା ଆଜି ପୁଅର କାହିଁକି ତା ପୁଅର ହବା ପଛରେ ଅଲଗା କାରଣ ଅଛି, ଇଏ ଗୋଟେ ମେଜର କାରଣ ନ୍ୟାଚୁରାଲ କାଲାମିଟିଜ। ପ୍ରତିବର୍ଷ ବନ୍ୟା ହବ, ପ୍ରତିବର୍ଷ ଚାଷୀ ମାନଙ୍କର ଚାଷ ଧ୍ୱଂସ ହବ, ସରକାର ରିଲିଫ ଦେଇଦେଇ କେତେ ଦବ? ସେ ତ କଣ୍ଟିନ୍ୟୁଅସଲି ଜେନେରେସନ୍ସ ପୁଅର ହେଇଗଲା, ସେ ଲୋକ ଯଦି ପୁଅର ହେଇଗଲା ଓଡିଶା ବି ପୁଅର ହେଇଗଲା ନା। ପ୍ରତିବର୍ଷ ସାଇକ୍ଲୋନ ହବ, ଘର ଭାଙ୍ଗିବ, ରାସ୍ତା ଯିବ, ସ୍କୁଲ ଭାଙ୍ଗିବ, କେତେ ପଇସା ଖର୍ଚ୍ଚ ହବ? 1000 crores of rupees। ଯେତେ 1000 କୋଟି ଟଙ୍କା ଖର୍ଚ୍ଚ ହବ ସେତେ କରପସନ ହବ, ଇତ୍ୟାଦି ଚାଲିବ। So if you want to prevent natural disaster, Odisha cannot do that. Odisha ଗୋଟେ ରାଜ୍ୟ ଭାବରେ ପ୍ରାକୃତିକ ବିପର୍ଯ୍ୟୟକୁ ରୋକିପାରିବ ନାହିଁ। Even India cannot do that. So joining hands together, America, China, India, all people must join hands together and save the earth from destruction by adopting the policy of sustainable development. ତେଣୁ minimum use ଯୋଉଟା ଏକଦମ basic needs, bare needs, I don't think that we are going in that way in these years. ଏଇ ଯୋଉ ସମୟରେ ଆମେ ସେଇଥିରେ ଯାଉଛନ୍ତି ବା ସେଇ ଦିଗରେ ଯାଉଛନ୍ତି ବୋଲି ମୁଁ ଭାବୁନି, because America is always blaming India and China that you are destroying the earth. So India and China are accusing England, German, France that you are developed states, you have been destroying earth on 100 years. So ତାର ଲଜିକ କଣ? ତମେ 100 ବର୍ଷ ହେଲା ଧ୍ୱଂସ କରୁଛ, ଆମେ ଆଉ 20 ବର୍ଷ ଧ୍ୱଂସ କରିଦଉ? No. So it will have a serious impact on livelihoods of the people. ସମୁଦ୍ରର ଯଦି ବରଫ ତରଳିବ ଆଣ୍ଟାର୍କଟିକାରେ, ତାପମାତ୍ରା ବଢିଲେ, ବିଶ୍ୱ ତାପମାତ୍ରା ବାଇ 0.1 ଡିଗ୍ରୀ, ତ ସମୁଦ୍ର କୂଳରେ ଥିବା ଗାଁ ଗୁଡା ବୁଡିବ। ମାଛ ମାରିକି ଯୋଉ ଲୋକମାନେ ଜୀବିକା ନିର୍ବାହ କରୁଛନ୍ତି, ମାଛ ମରା ହେଇପାରିବନି, ମାଛ ମରିଯିବ ଅଟୋମେଟିକ, ମାରିବାକୁ ଆଉ ସ୍କୋପ ନଥିବ, ମାଛ ରିସାଇକ୍ଲିଂ ହେଇପାରିବନି, ଧାନ କ୍ଷେତ ନଷ୍ଟ ହେଇଯିବ, ଲାଇଭଲିହୁଡ ନଷ୍ଟ ହେଇଯିବ, ଲୋକଙ୍କର ଡିଜିଜେସ୍ ବଢିଯିବ, so many issues. So if there will be a rise of temperature, there will be skin cancers out of sunburn. So new diseases will come, new disasters will come. So the development process has to be reversed. That is going to now. That is most important. ଯୋଉ ବିକାଶ ପ୍ରକ୍ରିୟାଟା ଚାଲିଛି, ମୁଁ ତମକୁ ଆଗରୁ ସବୁ ଇଂରାଜୀରେ ବୁଝଉଥିଲି, ଏବେ ଟିକେ ଓଡ଼ିଆରେ ତମକୁ ବୁଝେଇ ଦେଉଛି, ଆଉ ଟିକେ ଅଣ୍ଡରଷ୍ଟାଣ୍ଡିଂ ହବ better. So the process of development that we are undergoing since last 50 years at least, that has to be reversed, that has to be changed. ଏଟାକୁ ବଦଳେଇବାକୁ ପଡିବ, ତ ଓଲଟେଇବାକୁ ପଡିବ, ନହେଲେ everybody is at stake. ଆମେ ଆଉ ଭବିଷ୍ୟତ ବଂଶଧର ପାଇଁ କିଛି ରଖିପାରିବାନି, ସମଗ୍ର ପୃଥିବୀ ଧ୍ୱଂସମୁଖୀ ହବ। That is 100% guaranteed. ଗୋଟେ ଗ୍ୟାରେଣ୍ଟି ଆମେ ଦେଇପାରିବା, ପୃଥିବୀ ଧ୍ୱଂସଟାକୁ ଗ୍ୟାରେଣ୍ଟି ଦେଇପାରିବା ଯଦି ଏଇ ବିକାଶ ପ୍ରକ୍ରିୟାକୁ ଚାଲିବ। ତେଣୁ ଏଇ କଥାଟାକୁ ବେଶୀ ଗୁରୁତ୍ୱ ଦିଆହଉଛି, କିନ୍ତୁ ମତେ ଲାଗୁନି ଜାତିସଂଘ ସକ୍ସେସ ହବ ବା ଇଏ ସକ୍ସେସ ହେବେ ଇତ୍ୟାଦି ଇତ୍ୟାଦି। ତ ଲାଷ୍ଟ ହଉଛି ଫାଷ୍ଟ ରେସ୍ପଣ୍ଡର। ନେକ୍ସଟ ଚାପ୍ଟରକୁ ଯିବା। ତ ମୁଁ ଯୋଉ କହିଲି ଏଲପିଜି, ଲିବରାଲାଇଜେସନ, ପ୍ରାଇଭେଟାଇଜେସନ ଆଣ୍ଡ ଗ୍ଲୋବାଲାଇଜେସନ, ଉଦାରୀକରଣ, ଜଗତୀକରଣ, ଘରୋଇକରଣ ଯୋଉ ମଡେଲ ଅଫ ଡେଭଲପମେଣ୍ଟ ବର୍ତ୍ତମାନ କରିଛନ୍ତି, that is the most dangerous threat, or that is a serious threat to our nature, and that is one of the major reasons for the recurrence of disasters in a frequent manner. ବାରମ୍ବାର ଘଟୁଥିବାରୁ ତା ପ୍ରତି ମୁଁ କନସର୍ନ ହବାକୁ ପଡିବ। କ୍ଲାଇମେଟ ଚେଞ୍ଜ ନା ସମସ୍ତେ ଶୁଣୁଛ, ଆଉ ସେ ଋତୁ ନାହିଁ, ଶୀତ ଦିନେ ଶୀତ ହଉନାହିଁ, ବର୍ଷା ଦିନେ ବର୍ଷା ହଉନାହିଁ, ଖରା ଦିନେ ଖରା ଯୋଉ ଭଳିଆ କଥା ହଉନାହିଁ, ତାର ସବୁ ୱେ ଚେଞ୍ଜ ହେଇଗଲାଣି। ତାର କାରଣ ହଉଛି କ୍ଲାଇମେଟ ଚେଞ୍ଜ। କ୍ଲାଇମେଟ ଚେଞ୍ଜ ମାନେ କଣ? ଜଳବାୟୁ ପରିବର୍ତ୍ତନ ତ ସହଜରେ ବୁଝିପାରୁଛ, କାହିଁକି ହଉଛି? ଗ୍ରୀନ ହାଉସ ଗ୍ୟାସ ପାଇଁ ହଉଛି ବା ଅଦର ପଏଜନସ୍ ଗ୍ୟାସ we are uploading to the atmosphere. ଆଟମୋସ୍ଫିୟର ଗଲାବେଳକୁ ତାପମାନ ବଢୁଛି ପୃଥିବୀର, ବରଫ ତରଳୁଛି, ତାର କନସିକ୍ୱେନ୍ସ କଣ ହବ? ସୋ ମେନି ୟୁର ନେଟ୍ ପାଇବ, ବହି ପାଇବ, ଏଥିରେ ବେଶ ପଡିବ। But you need to study that. That is important. So final chapter, that is 17. ଏଥିରେ ବିଶେଷ କିଛି ନାହିଁ, ଖାଲି ଜଷ୍ଟ ଗୋଟେ କନସେପ୍ଟ ବୁଝିବା ଦରକାର। ଫାଷ୍ଟ ରେସ୍ପଣ୍ଡର, ପ୍ରଥମେ କିଏ ରେସ୍ପଣ୍ଡ କରିବ? ରେସ୍ପଣ୍ଡ ବୁଝିପାରୁଛ? ରେସ୍ପଣ୍ଡ ମାନେ କଣ? ତମକୁ ପିମ୍ପୁଡି କାମୁଡ଼ିଲେ ତମ ଇମିଡିଏଟଲି ହାତଟା ପଳଉଛି ନା, ତାର ଆଖିରେ ପିମ୍ପୁଡି କାମୁଡ଼ିଲା, ଗୋଟେ ଆଖିରେ କଣ ପଡିଗଲା, ଆଖିଟା ବୁଝି ଯାଉଛି, ପତା ବୁଝି ଯାଉଛି, ତମେ ନ କହିଲା ବେଳକୁ ବୁଝି ଯାଉଛି, ଦ୍ୟାଟ୍ ଇଜ ରେସ୍ପନ୍ସ। ଡିଜାଷ୍ଟର ହଉଛି ଫାଷ୍ଟ କିଏ ରେସ୍ପଣ୍ଡ କରୁଛି? ଆମେ ଦେଖିଲେ ମେକ୍ସିକୋରେ ଗୋଟେ ଭୂମିକମ୍ପ ହେଲା, ଫିଲିପାଇନ୍ସରେ ହେଲା, କ୍ୟୁବାରେ ହେଲା, ଆମେରିକାରେ ହେଲା, ଇଣ୍ଡିଆରେ ହଉଛି, ସାଇକ୍ଲୋନ ହେଲା 99 ସାଇକ୍ଲୋନ। 99 ସାଇକ୍ଲୋନରେ ଜଗତସିଂହପୁରର ଗୋଟେ ଗୋଟେ ପାର୍ଟରେ 15 ଦିନ ପରେ ଗଭର୍ଣ୍ଣମେଣ୍ଟ ଏଜେନ୍ସି ବା ରିଲିଫ ଏଜେନ୍ସି ବା ଏନଜିଓ ପହଞ୍ଚିଲେ। ଯାଜପୁରରେ ଗୋଟେ ପଞ୍ଚାୟତ ଅଛି, କୁହାଗଲା ପରେ ପୁରା କଟ୍ ଅଫ୍ ଫ୍ରମ୍ ଦି ରେଷ୍ଟ ଅଫ ଦ ୱାର୍ଲଡ, 4-5ଟା ପଞ୍ଚାୟତ। So who arrived first? The local people. They rescued. Mexico City local people saved 800 lives. 800 ଲୋକଙ୍କୁ ସେଭ୍ କରିଦେଲେ। ବଟ୍ ଯୋଉମାନେ ସେଭ୍ କରିଥିଲେ they died 100. ତାଙ୍କ ଭିତରୁ 100 ଲୋକ ମରିଗଲେ, because they are ill prepared. ତାଙ୍କ ପାଖରେ କିଛି ନଥିଲା, ଆର୍ଥକ୍ୱେକ୍ ଗ୍ଲୋଭ୍ସ ନଥିଲା, ଜୋତା ନଥିଲା, ହେଲମେଟ ନଥିଲା, ସେ କୋଉଠି ପଶିଗଲେ, ଛାତ ଗଳି ପଡିଲା, so they died. So that's why first responders are the local people and they must be trained. ତାଙ୍କୁ ଫାଷ୍ଟ ରେସ୍ପଣ୍ଡ ହିସାବରେ ଟ୍ରେନିଂ ଦେବା ଉଚିତ। ସେଇମାନଙ୍କୁ ଫାଷ୍ଟ ରେସ୍ପନ୍ସ ଏଇ କନସେପ୍ଟଟା ଏବେ ଡେଭଲପ କରିଛି ଯେ this is the rationale, this is the logic behind fast response because normally it take time government agencies NDRF ହଉ ବା OSDMA ହଉ ଯିଏ ହଉ ତମେ ପହଞ୍ଚିବାକୁ ଟାଇମ ଲାଗିବ ନା ଗାଡିରେ ଯିବେ ବୋଟରେ ଯିବେ ପହଞ୍ଚିବେ ତ it will take 4 hours 5 hours 6 hours ରିମୋଟ ପ୍ଲେସରେ earthquake ଭିତରେ ପଶିବାକୁ ହେଲେ ବହୁତ ଟାଇମ ଲାଗିବ ତ ଲୋକାଲ ପିପୁଲ ଯୋଉମାନେ ଜାଣିଛନ୍ତି ଆମେ ତାଙ୍କୁ ଦବା ତାହେଲେ ସେମାନଙ୍କୁ ଫାଷ୍ଟ ରେସ୍ପଣ୍ଡର ହବ କାହାକୁ କୁହାଯିବ ଟେକ୍ନିକାଲି those who have been given 40 to 60 hours of training in medical care management 40 ରୁ 60 ଘଣ୍ଟା ଆମେ ଯଦି ଟ୍ରେନିଂ ଗୋଟେ ଲୋକକୁ ଦେଇପାରିଲେ ବ୍ୟାଣ୍ଡେଜ କେମିତି କରିବ ଗୋଡ ଭାଙ୍ଗି ଯାଇଛି ସ୍କଲ ଭାଙ୍ଗି ଧର earthquake ର କଣ ପସିବଲ ଇଞ୍ଜୁରି ଡିଫରେଣ୍ଟ ଧର ଫ୍ଲଡ ସିଚୁଏସନରେ ପସିବଲ ଇଞ୍ଜୁରି ହେଲା ସାପ କାମୁଡିବା ଗୋଟେ କମନ ତ ସାପ କାମୁଡିଲେ କଣ ହବ ଇମିଡିଏଟଲି ସାପ କାମୁଡା ଇଞ୍ଜେକ୍ସନ ଦରକାର ଏବଂ ଆମର ଯୋଉ ରଙ୍ଗ କନସେପ୍ଟ ଥାଏ ସବୁ ଗୋଡ ବାନ୍ଧି ପକେଇବ ସେଠି ଛୁରୀ କାଟିଦବ ଏ କରିଦବ ରଙ୍ଗ ଟ୍ରିଟମେଣ୍ଟ ସବୁ ଥାଏ ୟୁ ମଷ୍ଟ be trained to have a proper treatment first aid ଟା ସଠିକ ଭାବରେ ଦେଇପାରିବ earthquake ରେ କଣ ହବ ମୁଣ୍ଡଟା ଛେଚରା ହେଇଯିବ ପଡିବ ତଳ ଉପରୁ ସ୍କଲ ଫ୍ରାକ୍ଚର ଗୋଡ ଭାଙ୍ଗିଯିବ ତେଣୁ ସେଠି ଇମିଡିଏଟଲି ଆମେ ଟ୍ରେନିଂ ଦେଇଦେବା ଇମିଡିଏଟଲି ରସ୍ ଟୁ ଏ ସେଫର ଅଣ୍ଡରଗ୍ରାଉଣ୍ଡ ମାନେ ଟେବୁଲ ତଳେ ପଶିଯିବ ବା କବାଟ ଭାଙ୍ଗିଲା କବାଟ ତଳେ ପଶିଯିବ ସୋ ଦ୍ୟାଟ ଯୋଉ ଇଏ ଆସିବ କଚରା ବା କଂକ୍ରିଟ ପଡିବ ସେ ଇମିଡିଏଟଲି ହେଡ ଇଞ୍ଜୁରିଟା ହବନି ଆଉ ସେମିତି ତ ତମେ ଭୂମିକମ୍ପ ହବ ବୋଲି ଜାଣିଥିଲେ ତ ସମସ୍ତେ ହେଲମେଟ ପିନ୍ଧି ଶୁଅନ୍ତେ that is not possible that's why we need fast responders and trained fast responders so those who will be given 40 to 60 hours of training they can be successful fast responders so what they will deal with they will deal with these items that has been given by World Health Organization in 1989 this is very simple you can understand that states of shock suppose there is a huge blast you will see an old lady is totally shocked she is unable to move ଜଣେ ବୟସ୍କ ମହିଳା ସେ ଯୋଉ ସାଉଣ୍ଡ ରେ ବା କଣଟା ହେଲା ଭୂମିକମ୍ପ ହେଲା ଛାତ ହେଲା ଡରିକି ପୁରା ଏମିତି ହେଇଛନ୍ତି ତା ପାଟିରୁ କଥା ବାହାରୁନି ଭିତର ତସ୍ତ୍ର ହେଇଛି ନିର୍ଜୀବ ଭଳିଆ ପଡିଛନ୍ତି you will think that she is dying or she has died so what you will do shock therapy we will train them that କେମିତି shock therapy ଦେଲେ ସେ normal position ଆସିବେ ବାହାରକୁ ଆଣିପାରିବା skull injury ଯୋଉ କଥା କହିଲି ଖପୁରି ଭାଙ୍ଗିବା fractures dislocations burns ପୋଡିଯିବା ଫାୟାରରେ exposure to toxic substances ଯୋଉଠି କେମିକାଲ ଧର ନ୍ୟୁକ୍ଲିୟର ଚେର୍ନୋବିଲରେ ଏକ୍ସପ୍ଲୋଜନ ହେଲା ବା ମାଡ୍ରାସରେ ଲିକ୍ ହେଲା ଗୁଡାଏ ଲୋକ ମରିଗଲେ ଯାଉ ଯାଉ ସବୁ ସେନ୍ସଲେସ୍ ହେଇକି ମୋଟରସାଇକେଲ କିଏ ପଡିଗଲା କିଏ ଚାଲୁଥିଲା ଗଳି ପଡିଲା ସୋ ହ୍ୱାଟ ଇଜ ଦ ଯଦି ଲୋକାଲ ଲୋକଙ୍କୁ ଟ୍ରେନ କରାହେଇଥାନ୍ତା ଯେହେତୁ ଦେयर ଇଜ ଏ ନ୍ୟୁକ୍ଲିୟର ଏଷ୍ଟାବ୍ଲିଶମେଣ୍ଟ or nuclear reactor there is a possibility of emission or gas leakage ତ emission that is dangerous life saving ତ କେମିତି କରାଯାଇ ପାରିବ ଯଦି ଟ୍ରେନିଂ ଦିଆ ହେଇଥାନ୍ତା ତାହେଲେ ସେଇ ପାନ ଦୋକାନୀ ବା ଚା ଦୋକାନୀ ବା ହୋଟେଲ ବାଲା ଯାହା ଯିଏ ଠେଲା ବାଲା ଯିଏ ସେମାନେ ଲୋକାଲ ପିପୁଲ ସେମାନେ ସାଙ୍ଗେ ସାଙ୍ଗେ ଇମିଡିଏଟ ଟ୍ରିଟମେଣ୍ଟ ଦେଇଥାନ୍ତେ ବା ନିଜେ ନିଜକୁ ସେଭ୍ କରିଥାନ୍ତେ ତାପରେ ଟ୍ରିଟମେଣ୍ଟ ଦେଇଥାଏ ତମେ ତ ଫ୍ଲାଇଟରେ ଯିବ ସେତେବେଳେ ଗୋଟେ ଇନଷ୍ଟ୍ରକ୍ସନ ଅଛି ଯେ ତମେ ଆଗେ ନିଜେ ଅକ୍ସିଜେନ ମାସ୍କ ପିନ୍ଧିକି ତାପରେ ଅନ୍ୟମାନଙ୍କୁ ସେବା କରିବ କାରଣ ତମେ ଯଦି ନିଜେ ନ ପିନ୍ଧିବ ଅକ୍ସିଜେନ ମାସ୍କଟା ତମ ପାଖକୁ ଅକ୍ସିଜେନ ଯିବନି ତମେ ଆଗେ ମରିଯାଇଥିବ ସେବା କଣ କାହାକୁ କରିବ ବା ତମେ ଯୋଉ ଜମ୍ପ କରିବ ଧର ସମୁଦ୍ରରେ ପଡିଲା ୱାଟର ପ୍ରୁଫ୍ ଜ୍ୟାକେଟ ଅଛି ସେଇଟା ଆଗେ ନିଜେ ପିନ୍ଧିଲେ ସିନା ତମେ ଆଗକୁ ସେଭ୍ କରିପାରିବ ଛୋଟ ପିଲା କି ଲେଡିଜ କି ବୟସ୍କ ଲୋକ ସୋ ୟୁ ମଷ୍ଟ ପ୍ରିପେୟାର ୟୁରସେଲ୍ଫ ଦେନ୍ ଇଲେକ୍ଟ୍ରୋକ୍ୟୁସନ କରେଣ୍ଟ ଲାଗିଯିବ କରେଣ୍ଟ ଲାଗିଲେ କଣ ହବ ତମେ ଯେ ହାତରେ ଟାଣିଲେ କଣ ହବ ସିଏ ବି ଯିବ ତମେ ବି ଯିବ ତେଣୁ ଗୋଟେ କାଠ ଆଣିବ କି ନନ୍ ଟ୍ରାନ୍ସଫର ଦିସ୍ କମନ ସେନ୍ସ ତମେ ଏଭରିବଡି ନୋସ୍ ଡ୍ରାଉନିଙ୍ଗସ ବୁଡିଗଲେ ତମେ କଣ କରିବ ତମେ ଯଦି ବୁଡି ଯାଇଥିବା ଲୋକକୁ ଯାଇ ସେଭ୍ କରିବ ଡାଇରେକ୍ଟ ସେ କଣ କରିବ ତମେ ବେକଟକୁ ଚିପିକି ଧରିବ ନିଜେ ବୁଡି ଯାଉଛି ତମକୁ ଧରିଲା ପରେ ତମେ ବି ବୁଡିଯିବ ସୋ ହ୍ୱାଟ ୱିଲ୍ ଡୁ ତମେ ଗାମୁଛା ପଡେଇବ ବା ତମେ ଗୋଟେ ବାଡି ଦବ ସିଏ ପହଁରିବ ପହଁରି ନ ପାରିଲେ ତମେ ତ କେମିତି ଆଣିବ ଟେକ୍ନିକ୍ସ ସେକେଣ୍ଡ ଇଜ ହାମରେଜେସ୍ କାର୍ଡିଓଭାସ୍କୁଲାର ଫେଲୁଅର ରେସ୍ପିରେଟୋରୀ ଜଣଙ୍କର ହାର୍ଟ କଣ ହେଇଗଲା ଯୋଉ ପମ୍ପିଂ କରିବ କେମିତି ଦେଖୁଛ ସୋସିଆଲ ମିଡିଆରେ କେମିତି କରାଯାଉଛି so there are different types of injury in different kind of disasters so you must be acquainted police firefighter they are trained but local responder fast responder jo kuhauchi lifeguard park rangers utility workers teachers child care truck driver security guard bodyguard general aviation pilot sports coach so these groups of people are ideally can be fast responders and they can be trained so we should pick up them fast as fast responders right next is in this fast responder you must have a checklist what you will do I have already told you that is radio with a battery so we don't find any radios nowadays in everybody's house our radio nine you have mobile phone there is a radio in mobile phone and you have this what news in your mobile phone android mobile phone But what is the demerit? If there is a cyclone, in Bhubaneswar, if it declares that from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. there will be no electricity. So what first you do? You first charge your battery fully in the previous night or in the early morning. That is your first job. So if there is no electricity for 3 days, what will do? You will use a power bank. Power bank will exist. Then what will do? Then you will be dependent on traditional radio and then battery. So if you have a torch and you don't have a battery, it's meaningless. If you have a radio and don't have battery, that is cell battery, that is that is a common sense. Then post emergency telephone numbers. Suppose after emergency, after a disaster, these numbers are tried best to be active. In 99 cyclone, one phone was working in Odisha, that is a Girdhari Gamango, the then chief minister. That is the one single phone which was working in the entire state of Odisha. No other phone was working. So that's a tragic story. So now in cyclone that does not happen. At least we ensure that 5, 6 the state relief commissioner, the control room, chief minister, chief secretary, all these 5, 6 important phones are working. So you have to keep the number of those phones before a disaster, not after the disaster. You will not get that. So each family member how and when to turn off the utilities, water, gas, electricity, stop them. That get training at least one member in a family about the ABC. So what is the minimum requirement in a disaster? Then smoke detectors in your bedrooms. If there is a fire, so what is the major cause of death in a fire? If there is a fire in a building, most of the people do not die out of burning because nobody goes on his own to burn. Because of smoking and choking, they get died. ବହୁତ ଲୋକ ମୃତ୍ୟୁବରଣ କରନ୍ତି କଣ ସେ ଧୂଆଁ ଚୋକରେ ନିଆଁରେ କିଏ ମରନ୍ତି ନାହିଁ ବହୁତ କମ ଲୋକ ମରନ୍ତି ହଠାତ୍ ଯିଏ ମରିଯାନ୍ତି ମାନେ ଲୁଗା ଲାଗିଯାଏ ଅଧୁରା ହେଇଯାଏ ମରନ୍ତି ନାହିଁ କିନ୍ତୁ କବାଟ ଝରକା ଯଦି ବନ୍ଦ ହେଇଛି ସେଥିରେ ଧୂଆଁ ଆସିଗଲା ଚୋକିଂ ହେଇଗଲା ସେଥିରେ ମାକ୍ସିମମ୍ ଲୋକ ମରିଯାନ୍ତି ହାଉ ଦିସ୍ କ୍ୟାନ୍ ବି ପ୍ରିଭେଣ୍ଟେଡ୍ ଇଜି ୱେ ଟୁ ବି ପ୍ରିଭେଣ୍ଟେଡ୍ ସେକେଣ୍ଡ ତରବରିଆ ଡରିକି ସେ ଯୋଉ ଦଶତାଲା ଉପରେ ଥିଲେ ବି ସେ ଡେଇଁ ପଡନ୍ତି ହେଲା ତ ଭାବିଲେ ଯୋଉ ଦୁଇ ସେକେଣ୍ଡରେ ମରିଯିବେ 2 ସେକେଣ୍ଡରେ ମରିବେ ନାହିଁ ଧୂଆଁରେ ଟାଇମ ଲାଗିବ ତା ଭିତରେ ସେ ଗୋଟେ ଧର ଶାଢୀ ଫାଡି ବନ୍ଧାବନ୍ଧି କରିକି ରସିରେ ଯଦି ନେକ୍ସଟ ଫ୍ଲୋରକୁ ଯାଇପାରିବେ କଣ ଗୋଟେ କରିପାରିବେ ସେ ଆଇଡିଆଟା ଖର୍ଚ୍ଚ ନ କରିକି ଟେନସନରେ ଡେଇଁ ପଡନ୍ତି ଡେଇଁ ପଡି ସେଠି ମରିଯାନ୍ତି ନିଆଁରେ ପଡି ଯେତେ ନିଆଁ ଲାଗିଗଲା ମଲେ ନାହିଁ ଡେଇଁ ପଡି ବେଶୀ ଲୋକ ମରିଗଲେ ଦେନ୍ ଟେକ୍ ଏ ଫାଷ୍ଟର୍ଡ ଆଣ୍ଡ ସିପିଆର କ୍ଲାସ ଏ ଯୋଉ କାର୍ଡିଓଭାସ୍କୁଲାର ପ୍ରୋସେସ ଯୋଉ କରିବ so these are the minimum then role of government in fast response government cannot come as a fast response team in any part of the world but it can facilitate the process it can train the local people it can provide budget for the local people to be trained and then it can building resilience among the community same thing community disaster management then it is finally we found in a disaster management community is central to the idea of a disaster management we must give training to the community we must mobilize community we must give knowledge as well as techniques and tools machines, etc., whatever required to the community. This is most important. Second, what we learn from this entire paper, there are inclusive development, sustainable development that is protecting nature and protecting the natural resources for future generation is the crucial part if you want to reduce the damage in disaster management. So, what are the challenges? First thing, we don't have knowledge or awareness or consciousness regarding this because if a factory is going on in your area new factory then there is a illusion that lakhs of people will be joining there as workers or managers or employees no these high tech industries are using or employing very less people and very less local people because all local people don't have the capability to join there because all are engineers not engineers in your village all are not technical person in the village all are not MBA people in the village so what a company will do what a factory will do they need engineers they need management people so finally they need workers even they may not use the workers who are less trained so they can get workers on a lower wage somewhere else so at best you can do there are so many factories polluting in Jharsuguda so what they are using they are polluting in Jharsuguda but they are using the labor through contractors not regular employees local people are not regular workers in a factory. They don't have pension. They don't have gratuity. They don't have a provident fund because they are contractual laborers and their service is not guaranteed. This is what will happen. But the entire area is polluted. So we have to stop the polluting industries. We have to find alternate ways of industries because you cannot say we will stop producing steel. We cannot live without steel. We need motorcycles, we need cars, we need rods for our building, we need rods for our bridges, for roads. So we need to create steel or produce steel, whether it is Tata producing or Raukla Steel producing. Next question is how minimum damage to environment, how pollution can be checked. So whether it is a government corporation or it is a private corporation. So there are allegations even against the government corporations like Nalco, etc., of polluting water sources and water bodies. So that's why we need to make public aware, conscious, and government must change its policy, keeping in mind the environmental disaster. So these are natural disasters, flood, cyclone, but the environmental disasters we need to do that. So for that we create stories, books, articles, writings, audiovisual, cinema, etc., so that people can be made aware. They can build up a pressure group on the factories, on the companies, on the governments that you must not or you don't have the right to destroy our nature, our natural resources. That must be protected. That must be continued for our future generations. Otherwise, we may live for another 40 years or 50 years or 60 years or 70, maybe 100 years. So after 100 years, civilization is not going to end. So we cannot afford to allow the governments, the corporations, the factories, the companies to destroy our natural environment and to create the number of natural disaster more so that we can save ourselves, save our humanity, save our civilization, save our nature. Because this is not going to be recreated. Once human civilization is destroyed, it cannot be recreated again. Because you cannot recreate dinosaur. Dinosaur got finished. There are so many scientific theories that that's a natural extinction, natural death. ପ୍ରାକୃତିକ ବିଲୋପ ହେଲା. We are not sure. Some scientists are saying because of the changes in nature, because of the pollution or environmental disaster, dinosaur died. We don't find dinosaurs nowadays. So time will come when you cannot find elephants except in your book pages or in your museums. ହାତୀ ଆଉ କାଠର ମାନେ କଣ ପଥର ଆଉ କାଠର ହାତୀ ଛଡା ପ୍ରକୃତ ହାତୀ ହୁଏତ ଆଉ 50 ବର୍ଷ ପରେ ନଥିବେ, ସିଂହ ନଥିବେ, ବାଘ ନଥିବେ। ତ ସେମାନେ ଚାଲିଗଲେ ତମେ ରହିବ ବୋଲି ମଣିଷ ଗ୍ୟାରେଣ୍ଟି ନାହିଁ, ମଣିଷ ବି ରହିବେନି। So everybody is animal, man is also animal. So everybody is animal, everybody will be destroyed because it is dependent on nature. So if you attack nature, nature will take revenge. ମଣିଷ ଯଦି ଆକ୍ରମଣ କରି ଚାଲିବ ପ୍ରକୃତି ଉପରେ, ଆକ୍ରମଣ କଣ ତାକୁ ବ୍ୟବହାର କରିବ, ମିସୟୁଜ କରିବ, ଓଭର ୟୁଜ କରିବ, ତାହେଲେ ସେ ତାର ପ୍ରତିଶୋଧ ନବ। So finally, this is the end of this paper. Thank you all who have attended all the classes since last 5 days for the paper and 4 days for the first paper, e-governance. So I hope in this time limit and online mode with a problems of connectivity, I have best tried to give you the best I have, because in a physical mode we could have an interactive session. I could explain your doubts, etc. But in an online mode, time and technology limits us. That's why I hope you have understood the major key concepts of these two papers. Thank you. If you have any
Yes, sir.
doubt, you can ask questions.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
So so I have just one question. Kun, କୁହ କାର question ଅଛି କି ପୁନ?
No, sir.
ସରି ତମେ ନାଁଟା ପୁନ ଆସୁଛ, ମୁଁ କହିଲି tome ଝିଅ ପିଲା।
Sir,
ତମର
the email ID is.
ଆଚ୍ଛା ଆଚ୍ଛା ଠିକ ଅଛି, ଓକେ।
Yes, sir.
ତମ ନାଁ କଣ?
Sir,
ତମ ନାଁ
Happy New Year, sir. In advance.
happy in advance. Happy New Year is coming just after 1 day, not in advance. It is always already time to wish you Happy New Year. I also wish a
Happy
very
New Year.
Happy New Year. Thank you, same to you. So we have
Thank.
experienced very difficulty in this year. This physical distancing, ଶାରୀରିକ ଭାବେ ପରସ୍ପରଠୁ ଦୂର ରହିଲେ କେହି କାହାକୁ କଣ୍ଟାକ୍ଟ କରିପାରିଲେନି। I enjoyed classes. There is 9 classes with you. Hope you also enjoyed my class.
Yes, sir.
Am I right? Am I
Sir,
right?
Yes,
yes,
sir.
sir. Yes.
Yes,
Sir,
sir.
yes.
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 Okay.
Thank
Okay,
you, sir.
thank you. So
Thank you.
let us meet again if there is
Yes,
an
sir.
opportunity. Okay, thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you.
Thank you.
Again,
Thank
happy
you,
New
sir.
Year. Okay, thank you. Welcome. Chalo, bye.